Thank you. Mr. President.
Order.
Thank you. Mr. President, I rise today to address an issue that transcends politics and strikes at the very core of who we are as Americans. Throughout my time in Congress, I've made it my priority to work with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, to look past partisanship and to work towards passing common sense legislation so we can help working families in Nevada and across our country. In the House, I was proud to be named one of the most bipartisan members of Congress, and that's a title I plan to keep in the Senate. So I hope that my colleagues recognize the seriousness of why I rise today. It is without partisan motivation when I say that we have a crisis on our hands. Make no mistake about it. There is a humanitarian crisis at our southern border, and we are failing to address it. This administration is failing to address it. This Congress is failing to address it. With violence and political unrest increasing in the northern triangle countries of El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala, we are experiencing a surge in the number of migrants who have come to our southern border seeking refuge from violence and persecution. More than 60% of migrants are families and unaccompanied children fleeing for their lives and seeking a safe place. Children and their families are coming to our country for the same reason so many of our ancestors did, because they have no other choice. And they're coming to the United States, a nation of immigrants, a nation built on a foundation of core values, and we do not turn away those fleeing persecution and certain death. And it's those same values that tell us that when children, including infants and toddlers, are at our doorstep, we do not put them in cages, tear them from their mother's arms, let them go without showers, food, or medical attention, or let them sleep on cold floors. The reality is, Customs and Border Patrol officers are not trained to care for children, much less those who've experienced trauma. They are not prepared nor qualified to provide the much-needed care to the families and children who are coming here. What's also true is that there are members of our Border Patrol and law enforcement who are trying to do the right thing. Those men and women, they signed up to protect our country from terrorism, narcotics, and foreign threats. They're not trained to take care of traumatized children. But the fact remains, the state of things in these immigration facilities is untenable and indefensible. I've had the chance to see this crisis firsthand, so allow me to speak a little bit on what I've witnessed and how we got here. Children and families have been placed into overcrowded and unsanitary facilities, left without suitable living conditions or even the most basic of necessities for days or even weeks. Last year, while serving as a member of the House of Representatives, I traveled to the U.S.-Mexico border with one of my colleagues. We toured the Tornillo Unaccompanied Minor Facility and the Paso del Norte Processing Center in Texas. What we witnessed there was heartbreaking. We saw a tent city holding unaccompanied migrant children and children separated from their parents. They had no access to legal counsel, no way to regularly talk to their families without any idea of what might happen next. Throughout their camp, there was a sense of anxiety, of hopelessness, and despair. I've carried the images of what I saw during that tour with me to this day. In committee testimony and in follow-up briefings, in conversations with the administration and its agencies, we were told that conditions would improve, that plans were in place to provide the care that is so desperately needed, and that families would be reunited. We now know that is wrong. We've all seen the news and read reports detailing the abysmal state of these facilities. Children still in cages, still going to sleep hungry, still going weeks without bathing or access to clean clothes. Young children being tasked by officers to care of toddlers, and in some cases, allegations of sexual abuse by officers. To find out firsthand whether conditions are improving, just last week I joined my Senate colleagues in touring detention facilities in the McAllen, Texas area. I'm sad to say that these news reports are accurate. These horrific conditions have not changed. Families are still being separated, children still in cages, not knowing if they will ever see their parents again. And this administration continues to ignore basic human rights. Children should never be held in these conditions under any circumstances for any amount of time, period. We saw children stuffed into crowded spaces, the people detained in these facilities lacking access to basic necessities like toothpaste and access to sanitary supplies. There are few, if any, pediatricians, no child welfare professionals, no hope. Just thousands of children and families in the care of law enforcement officers. This is not who we are. The dehumanization of migrants, including many tender-aged children in our detention centers today, is unacceptable. The psychological trauma they've experienced and that they're continuing to experience will likely leave children with deep scars that will haunt them for the rest of their lives. So let me be clear. We are failing our law enforcement. We are failing our families. And we are failing children. We can agree that immigrants with criminal records or those who have falsified their reasons for coming should not be allowed to stay. But during my visit to McAllen last week, the acting head of Border Patrol told all of us that the vast majority of migrant families are not criminals. I refuse to stand by while this takes place on American soil. So I decided to take action by placing holds on 2 individuals nominated by this administration to serve in administrative and policy roles at DHS until conditions in these facilities drastically improve, until DHS meets the standards it is obligated to uphold. This is the United States of America. All children deserve to be treated humanely and with dignity. And those of any age who come to our country claiming asylum have a legal right to present their case. We must ensure that we achieve at the very least minimum humanitarian standards at CBP facilities. That means that at all CBP facilities where children are processed or detained, we need to have on-site medical professionals with pediatric training and child welfare professionals. That means implementing a process for announced and unannounced visits by NGOs so that we can ensure proper oversight and accountability as well as direct services for children. Even something as simple as a sign that communicates to migrant families explaining where they are and what to expect. Something that simple could reduce anxiety and hopelessness that these individuals and children are feeling. There is so much good in the American people, and that shows in the outpouring of support from NGOs that are ready and willing to step in and respond. They do so in so many other humanitarian efforts. Yet, our government is turning away these offers of help. Conditions at these facilities have not improved, and until they do, I will not remove my holds on this administration's nominees. And once we've taken the necessary steps to ensure migrant children are being held in safe and sanitary conditions, we must then take up the critical and long overdue task of reforming our long-term immigration policy. We owe it to migrant children and families to reach an immediate solution. We owe it to our law enforcement to prevent this difficult situation from continuing. We must come together. We must take action now. Because at the end of the day, these are human lives, and they depend on us. I suggest an absence of a quorum.